Okay, so how should a student approach the study of religion, and what advice might I give for a student who is concerned about getting something out of the course? Well, for those of us who have chosen to spend our lives studying religion and think that when humans are religious, that's absolutely the most fascinating thing that humans do, we imagine that our fascination will simply be catching, and so that any student doesn't have to really worry about getting something out of the course. It happens automatically. Persons catch the passion and also find religion intrinsically interesting. However, I realize that when I think about my own education and core curriculum courses I took in a variety of areas, that I was not immediately captured by some of the things I studied. So I'll unpack the enthusiasm for the study of religion a bit by giving you all some ideas. I think the most important thing that can happen in a course on religion is actually not distinct to a course on religion, but should happen in any course that we would call part of liberal education or a core curriculum at a college or university. And that is we develop listening skills. I think everyone has had the experience of talking with someone and you're sort of spilling your guts with them and you're telling them, oh, this horrible thing that's happened to you, and you want their understanding. And your friend interrupts and says, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and starts off on some tangent. And you realize they don't understand at all what you've been saying. And they weren't listening. And your life is really closed to them in terms of the things you were really trying to share coming from deep within you. And my understanding is that that happens over and over again when we are in a classroom and we are studying persons who live in different areas of the world, who live in different times, so cultural differences, differences in what time in history they've lived, questions of gender, questions of the class, if they were from an elite class or a non-elite class. So I understand that the primary task I have as a teacher is to help students learn how to listen, so that when we converse, I try to introduce each religion we study as if I were a representative of that religion, and to see if my students can avoid the scenario that I just described of a student saying, oh, yes, that religion, why, it's exactly like my own. Or the opposite of that, listening for a few minutes, reading a few pages about a religion and saying, well, that's the strangest thing I've ever heard of. Who would ever think that? Either the immediacy of identification can be wrong, as my example of a friend who thinks right away they understand what you're talking about. Also, the distance that who you are studying must be so different from yourself. Both of those extremes are problematic, and they're problematic because I think they attest to poor listening skills in the person who would have either immediate familiarity with someone or immediate distance. So when one studies religion, the thing that one can work on, which is good for life in general, is how to listen, how to hear someone tell their story and reserve judgment on it, either judgment of agreement or judgment of disagreement. Just let somebody tell a story. That's what we want our good friends to do. We want them to listen to us and to reserve judgment until they've heard our whole story. And I think that's a skill that one can practice in a class in religion, especially a class in world religions, and take with them everywhere else they go. Another reason to study religion is that most of the ideas and practices that we look at when we're studying religion weren't just thought up yesterday. These ideas have been tested and carried from person to person for, in some cases, well over 2,000 years. Now, when I would think of any good idea that I've had in my life and imagine that it would hang around, much longer than it takes to send it by email, I become very humble. I've saved a few papers that I've written when I think I even have a couple that I wrote in high school. Not because they're worth saving, but they actually remind me biographically of who I was. But the religions have preserved ideas that people have thought were worth saving for thousands of years. And I think that suggests we should take some time and hear what they have to say. Any idea that's been around for that long just might have something going for it. And certainly, at the very minimum, it's going to give any idea that any of us have a run for our money, because ours aren't time-tested like that. So that's another reason to study religion, is hanging out with ideas that have a long history.